Hi, this is Roger Smith of the True Blue Lounge, and we're going to get to know Carol Newman, a 1982 grad. Hey, Carol, how are you doing?
Hey Roger, how are you? I'm great. How are you?
Boy, I'm a day I hang back, day I hang back. Oh boy. So this is going to be
Yeah,
really
still
fun.
here.
This is going to be really fun, Carol. Fun for me because I get to know a little bit about you and ask you some questions. It's all for fun. So, brave people come here because it's all about authenticity, okay? You being you. So let's go. So, Carol, let's go. I've got all my normal questions I ask everybody. What is your drink of choice?
A nice fruit punch, some fruit combinations. Could be a daiquiri without the alcohol, or it could be a smoothie combination of fruits. So any combination of fruits um, is good for me.
Okay, okay. What about your food of choice?
Um, Curry goat. I mean, I don't know if there's any Jamaican who doesn't say curry goat. But if I get a nice vegetarian stew as well, because I do vegetarian, I'll have a good vegetarian stew, some coconut milk in there and curry, and I'm good. But if I do meat, it'll be curry goat. That has been a long-standing favorite of mine.
And if you're
And
cooking for
there's
your...
this debate,
Sorry, go on.
this debate as to whether it's curry goat and white rice or curry goat and rice and peas. Um, I do the curry goat and rice and peas, and I like roti. I like all things most things Indian, so I will have roti as well.
The old curry goat is very popular amongst Jamaicans for some reason. I don't know
Yeah.
what it is. All right. Okay, and if you're cooking for yourself, what do you normally, if you're, what's your favorite to cook?
Uh, I'll cook probably some vegetarian stew. I try different things, just plain vegetables with peas and beans or something. So there'll be some combination
Hmm.
of a vegetarian stew. I'm trying now different vegetarian dishes, and I've always find a way to end up with having coconut milk in there somewhere and curry. But a nice vegetarian stew will do it for me. That's probably what I've been my go-to.
Okay. So give me a pitch of I want to know what primary school you went to and give me a pitch of how you got to where you are in Kingston from graduation.
Well, I went to two primary schools actually. So I started out at the Georges Plain Primary School, and I went there until grade 4. And then I moved from Georges Plain to Unity. So I only did grade 5 at Unity. And because in my grade 5, I did common entrance at 10 plus. So that was because then I think I had three choices or three chances, we used to say then. And I took it at my first chance in grade 5 and passed that year and then went to Manning's. So I still give credit to my George's Plain Primary School, which is where the foundation was laid. And considering I was only at Unity from the September until common entrance in usually around about January or thereabouts. And then by July, I was on to Manning's. So I graduated from Manning's in 1982. I didn't do sixth form. And I worked for a while in Westmoreland at a prep school that was in Burn Savannah, Samuel's Prep. Actually, that came second. Just out of school, I went to work for lawyer Greg, Norma Gregg. She passed away recently, an old girl of Manning's as well. And so I went to work there as a junior secretary, fresh out of high school. I think I went there the September after graduation. And then I went after that to Samuel's Prep as a pre-trained teacher teaching grades 3 and 4. It was a combined group. And I did that the January up until the summer. And then I moved to Kingston over the summer. And that was it. I've lived in Kingston all my life since that would have been 1983. Um, did several things. Went to college, and then transitioned 3 or 4 jobs, and then in 2021, at the end of 2021, I decided to just repurpose my skill sets and refocus and become my own boss. And so I started a consulting firm in 2022.
Oh, nice,
So that's
nice.
my.
So, what is? Tell me about a terrible job you done that you didn't like.
You know, I don't think I had one.
Okay.
I don't think I had one. I think I had good jobs, good mentors, good employers, good co-workers. In the early days, of course, before college and so on, and you're young coming into a space, uh, I found that I got a lot of encouragement and help. And so I really can't say I had a terrible job. And I suppose that may be so because the apart from the job just fresh out of high school with Miss Greg, and the teaching job, which was two terms, all my other jobs I have stayed for years. So I was at one. I think that my shortest stint would have been about 3 years. And so it's 3 years, 12 years, 25 years, 4 years. Yeah, and so if it wasn't working for me, I would have been out of there. So I can't say really had a bad job experience.
Okay. Tell me about a job that you really loved, or are you in that job now?
Well, I'm absolutely loving what I'm doing, and my last job, I absolutely loved it, and it is what has set me up for the most part for what I'm continuing to do. Uh, I went into the space of intellectual property management. And when I went into that space, I knew absolutely nothing about intellectual property, and more particularly copyright. And so I just immersed myself in it, and I was like a sponge. I just liked it, and I just went into everything I saw, found all the training I could do, learned everything, even though my job focused for the most part on copyright management. I went off the limb, and I went in. I learned about trademarks. I learned about patents. I learned about everything. And it was just fascinating. And it was at the time when copyright and the whole IP management was just beginning to take shape in this side of the world. And so I just threw myself in. We had just, for example, here in Jamaica, had a new Copyright Act. And everything was just beginning to open up in the region. And it was just fascinating. So that for me was a really, really good introduction and submersion, immersion even. And so that became my launch pad. And I did that for 23 years.
Yeah.
And that became, I just repurposed all I learned, all my expertise, all my experiences, and leveraging my network that I've developed over the years for my consultancy, the IP Bridge.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Have you got any vices? We're getting to the warm ones now.
Shoes,
Just
shoes.
shoes. Okay.
Just
Nice shoes,
shoes.
expensive
Just
shoes, or
shoes.
just shoes? Any
No,
shoes?
just nice shoes.
Okay.
High heels. I love my heels.
Uh-huh.
So I do have shoes. I remember a colleague coming from the States once for a conference that I was hosting, and we went out to Port Royal. A group of us took them out, all our speakers out to Port Royal, and we're leaving from Port Royal, and we're about to leave, and I cannot find my car keys. And I'm like, where? Because I knew I had them, and so we started searching everywhere, opening the car, searching the car, moving the chairs, the car seats, everything. And I said, let me look in the trunk of the car. And in the trunk of the car, I may have had like about 6 pairs of shoes. 'Cause I used to just
Wow.
keep shoes in the car. I had shoes in the car. And my American colleague saw it, one of them saw it, and like, what is this? And I never lived it down. Of course, by the time I got to the next conference, it was ahead of me, Carol, the shoe lady. So that basically is my vice. I do like a nice pair of shoes, and I do like my heels. And
Nice.
long may I be able to wear them.
Right. Um, Religion. Are you religious, and does it play a big part, a small part, or no part in your life?
It is absolutely, totally important to me. I'm a Christian. I'm a Seventh day Adventist Christian. And that is my foundation. It keeps me centered. Just knowing that my Creator is always with me, and I've seen the manifestations of His presence and His workings in my life. So, absolutely important. My faith, absolutely important to me.
That's beautiful. Um, when you hear people that don't believe, what goes on in your mind when they don't see it, when they don't see the light the way you see it?
I say give them time. I'm not the one who is going to push up or push against someone who doesn't believe. I read somewhere, I may have heard somewhere that for the most part, persons who know at a point in their lives don't believe, at one time believed, and perhaps stop believing because of something that happened in their life that caused them to rethink and begin to doubt. But I don't push up against or kick against it and fight against them. I just say in time, because God's manifestation is all around us. You can't not see it. You can't avoid it. It's there. And so I just leave persons like that and say one day they will come to that realization. And it's not for me to push them or to curse them out or to call down fire and brimstone on them. That's not my role. The Lord, in His greatness and His understanding and compassion and who He is, will reveal Himself at a time when it is, because He does things in His timing. So it will
Do you
happen.
think? Do you think that this second coming and the fact that we all have to pay account for the lives we lived, is it just for humans, or do you think animals have to do likewise?
Humans, it's about humans. We were made above the animals. We are not in that category. I believe that we were created in the likeness and in the image of God, and we are above the animals. We were given the reasoning capabilities that are not seen or for animals. Um, I believe that we were created in the image and likeness of God, and we were made for His to worship him and for his glory. And so I believe that the second coming, he said he's coming back for his people. He never said he's coming back for his children, for his animals. But, and so it is for us as humans. That's not to say there won't be animals, but it's for us as humans to, because that's who he died for.
Okay, okay. Thank you for that. Um, do you have a favorite book or movie that you would have read a couple of times, or a movie that you like watching?
Um, I can't. None of the movies come to mind right now. Um, I'm watching. I've been watching The Chosen, which is a series. I don't know if you've heard about it.
What's it called?
That
Sorry.
is, it's called The Chosen,
Okay.
and it's a series about the life of Jesus. We're accustomed to watching a 2 hour length movie or maybe a 2.5 hour length movie about the life of Jesus or the life of some patriarch or the other. But this particular series is, I think we're now in the fourth season of the life of Jesus. And so it's a totally different approach. And so I've been watching that, and I found it very interesting, and it brings the life and the Bible alive. So I've been following that. Um, I can't think of one movie right now, but in terms of books, uh, I always remember. You remember we did Walkabout? You remember that book, Walkabout? We
Yep.
did it
Uh
in
huh.
first form.
Yep.
Yes, about
Arkulula.
the
You remember that's the
yes,
Australian Aboriginal book for water.
yes,
I
in
so
Australian outback. Yes,
yes,
and
yeah.
so Australia continues to be on my list of what are places to go because I just to relive or just to see that place.
Wow,
I
wow.
went close. I went to New Zealand, but didn't quite make it across to
Okay.
Australia. But similarly, there's another book that we did in high school called "Escape to Last Man Speak," and that book I think we may have used it in second form. But that book, I remember, it made an impact on me because in those days, I never went beyond perhaps Bluefields Beach. It's perhaps the farthest I would have gone. And so this whole other world outside of Sablamar even was in this place called Bogwalk and Linstead and all those places, which I had no clue about. I never even been past Bluefields, and God bless how many times I've even been that far.
Wow.
And then, so that book stayed with me though. It stayed with me all over the years. And then when I got to living in Kingston, and the first time I was going across the flat bridge and going to Bogwalk and Linstead, the book came back to me. And I remember the trek of the children and going through the Monique Hills and all of that. And I reread the book. I found the book and reread it just so that I could kind of connect the dots. And then the crowning moment was when I actually met the author who wrote the book,
That's
Jean
nice.
DaCosta. And that was just because in my work, my last job, I interacted a lot with publishers and authors. So when I met her, that was a come home moment for me. And of course, I had to tell her about having read her book in high school and how it impacted me. And then later on in life, being actually able to see, not in detail, but at least have an idea of the trek of those orphans back then. So yeah, now I'm reading a book. I've read it perhaps twice already, by a Jamaican author, Judith Falloon Reason, and it's the Something Stones, and it's also another local book that is based in St. Anne, and it harps back to um, the days of just after slavery coming in to modern civilization. So it kind of connects both periods. And so the Silent Stones, I'm reading that. think I'm on my third reading of it. It's really a fascinating book. I tell the author all the time that she needs to do the movie because she's a filmmaker as well. So I say, yeah, you need to put this book into a movie.
Nice, nice. Hey, can you tell me about a low point in your life and how you overcame it?
Um, Low point. The low point probably was when my father died. Um, many of us, many of us come from households where the man in the house wasn't our blood father. He wasn't our natural father, and I came from one of those households. So the man I grew up with was not my biological dad, but he was my dad in every sense of the word. And um, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2014. I think when we look back, we saw signs of it, but didn't realize what it was. And so he would have perhaps been around 2012 when he first exhibited the symptoms and signs of Alzheimer's. But we didn't realize until 2013, 2014, thereabouts. And then to watch the decline over the years until he passed in 2020 was heartbreaking.
That's very
It
similar
was
to, to
heartbreaking.
dementia, is it? Alzheimer's?
Yes, so
Yeah,
he
yeah,
had
okay.
dementia, and it came to the point. I mean, during that journey, there were times when I had to remind him of who it was that was on the phone, and he would suggest, that he remembered, and he would give a familiar laugh, and he would call, had various names for me, so he would always say, "Oh, it's Miss Carr," and then he would, when it connected, he would ask me for the children. But then there came a time when he had no clue who I was. And even though I said, "Daddy, it's Carol," oh, and you could hear the distance, which means that he wasn't connecting. And when I saw him and I realized he had no idea who I was, that was heartbreaking.
Yeah, that's sad. That's sad.
And it was sad. It was sad. So in a way, when he passed, I saw him like 2 days before he passed, and and he passed on my birthday. Can I tell
Wow.
you?
So you're never
So
gonna forget.
I cannot forget. I cannot forget. So that was a low point. That was a low point.
And how did you overcome it? I mean, grief is something that everybody
You know,
overcomes differently.
I never cried. Up to this day, I didn't cry. And I think it's because I felt that he was at peace, and as he lived in life, so he died. He was a very peaceful man, always laughing, always smiling, always giving jokes. I've never heard that man raised his voice. Um, of course, he used to drop some lick when the time come, but um, I think I was I just thought he was at peace, and it was perhaps better for him to go without suffering. So he wasn't in any pain, and he wasn't, in any great distress. He was just lying there, and he just slept away. And so I felt that that kind of helped me to say, well, he didn't suffer. The good man he was, the Lord in his mercy didn't allow him to suffer. And so that is what helped me to overcome that loss.
So, so when you think about death, do you is this something that you fear? Are you very frightened of death? Are you apprehensive? How do you think about death? That's my first question. Second, do you want to be cremated or buried?
Um, I will, to be honest, there is some apprehension. And the apprehension is for my children.
Hmm.
And if I were to go now, I would, in fact, one of them, they don't, they're now in uni overseas, and one came home on Tuesday, and just for her to be home and to see her, touch her, and they're at that stage of their life. There's a saying that our parents and grandparents and older ones used to say, that they want to see you past the worst. That is, if anything, the apprehension I have, that I would like to be here to see them past the worst. So to see them finish their university studies. They have 1 year left for their bachelor's program, and so next year this time they should be finished, God's willing. And so I just want to see them at that place where I can say, okay, they can fly on their own. And so if there's any apprehension about death, that is what it is.
Okay.
It's not about fearing for the afterlife or anything. I don't think about that. It's just about my
So,
children.
what do you think happens to us when we expire?
The breath goes back to God. The body knows nothing and it decays, and that's the end of it. Um,
So,
I
what
do
about
not
the honey
believe.
and milk story up in heaven?
Huh?
What about the honey and milk story up in heaven, where the souls? No.
No, I don't subscribe to this. When you die, your soul goes to heaven and it is with Jesus or God up there. No, and that is what you live for your soul to ascend into the heavens and be with God. I don't subscribe to that. I don't believe it. I believe, as the Bible says, that God created man from the dust of the earth, and he breathed into him and he became a living soul. So it's body, for me, it's body plus the breath of God, which is the spirit, if you want to call it that, equals a living soul. And so the soul is not something which disappears and floats off into the sky somewhere. The soul is you, the person. The combination of body and spirit makes you the soul, a living person. And so when that living person dies, the spirit returns to God, the breath, and the body decays. And
Cremation, cremation or burial?
um, it's not something I have thought, I've used to think about. And in recent times, I'm thinking maybe cremation, because it doesn't matter whether you cremate or your body decays. You don't know anything. It's like a dream. It don't really matter. But perhaps cremation. And that may be because my daughters are not going to be one place, and I think family plot kind of thing where all the generations are one place, and that doesn't happen anymore. So yeah, in recent times I've been thinking, maybe cremation when the thought does come.
Right, right, right. Um, what are you most passionate about, Carol?
Well, firstly, my children, they're who I live for. I have two daughters, twins, and they are who I live for. I am passionate about them, about helping them to be the best that they can be, helping them to just live not only for themselves, but for others, and to find themselves and find their place in this world. So that is my greatest passion. Outside of that, it's about giving back, creating an opportunity, finding an opportunity to give back. I benefited from many benefactors, many persons have helped me along the way. So giving back is one of those things which, and serving in however way I can, is one of my passions. So I do that a lot. Finally, perhaps overstretching myself even in terms of volunteer assignments, but it is something which is important to me because I benefited from others on this journey called life.
So, if I was to ask you if you had any hobbies and if you had time to indulge, it would be giving, or do you have a real hobby?
Well, there are the hobbies that you like to do. I love to travel. I wish I could do more. And I used to do a lot, mostly because of work. So that was something that I did quite a bit of. It's something I hope to do more of as well, and particularly with my children, as now that they're grown. I want to do more traveling and traveling with them. So I like to travel. I like to explore different cultures and meet people in different places. I like to read. I don't read as much as I used to. There were the days when you would go through several books in one week. You're traveling back in the day. You're traveling on the bus and your head is down in the book, and by the time you reach home, you finish the book. So I used to read a lot. I used to read voraciously. I don't read a lot anymore. Um, I like I like cooking and entertaining. I don't do a lot of that anymore either. But those are some of the things that I have an interest in. And I like the arts. I like to watch nice dramatic piece or the a dance piece or so on. So yeah, I like the arts. Those are where my interests lay.
Fun fact: I used to read Jackie Collins. She used
Yes.
to have some spicy books.
Oh
I don't
yes.
know how I
Oh
got
yes.
into reading those sort of stuff, but I really should be ashamed to mention it now. But if I told you I've
Yes.
read probably five or six of her
No.
books, you'd be
In fact,
surprised. She was epic. Yep.
there were those books, and there was I perhaps have read all the Mitchum books because I used to like spy thrillers. I was into all the espionage.
Okay.
So all the Mitchum books. So when those transferred to movies, I
You
watched
watch
them as
movies.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I've read all of those books as well, and the Jackie Collins and the back in the day it was I didn't so much like Mills and Boone, but there's another one, Harlequins was the other one,
Yeah.
uh, and Nancy Drews back then. I didn't so much like the boot. There was another one, the Bobbsey twins. Didn't so much like the Bobbsey twins.
Yeah. Bob's the Twins.
Nancy Drew was so I did have a collection of Nancy Drews, and then
Hardy
back then we
Boys.
used to Hardy Boy was second to my Nancy Drew.
Right. 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 Cool. Cool. Hey, when you think of the future, Carol, are you hopeful?
That's a good one. Um, I'm not hopeful in the sense that things I don't believe things are going to get necessarily get better, much better. Um, Despite our longing, despite our hopes, despite our investments in self, investments in children, investment in business, investments in just trying to have a better life for a better community, a better country, a better nation. But I don't think things are going to get necessarily better. People talk about the good old days, whatever that good old days. That for me, that is relative as well. What's the good old days for one person may not necessarily be the good old days for another person. Um, but in terms of are things going to get better? Which things? If we're talking about just the country, just economically, I don't have much hope that things are going to get better. Again, that is tied to my religious beliefs that the world is going to come to an end and it's just going to get progressively worse over time. and you just, as you know, occupy until I come, as best as you can, and you do that by doing the best you can to all the persons you can, as often as you can. But yeah, my apprehensions, if any, in the future is just to be able to do that and to do that comfortably. That whilst I occupy until he come, then we can do it in a comfortable way as best as is possible. And you help someone along the way to be as comfortable as they can, as you can in the circumstances.
Fun question for you. Did you have a high school crush, and do you care to say who it was?
No, I didn't. Back in those days, I was one of the very reserved persons. I was not one of the it girls. I was quite laid back, very reserved, very shy, and so I wasn't, certainly in the early days. I wasn't into that. And then by the time I got to fourth, fifth form, I was focusing on them books, because that was going to be my way out. And I just didn't think about it. Of course, I knew persons around me, and I knew persons who were connected in some way or other. And some of those connected persons were my friends, in school. So I knew of that, but I didn't particularly have a crush in high school, no.
Do you have a type?
Do I have
A type.
a type of,
A type.
what do you mean, a
If
type? A
you're,
type of a man?
yes, ma'am. I mean, it could. I wasn't making any
Or a
assumptions
type of
here.
what?
No, just in case you it wasn't a man. I just wanted to know if you had a type. That's all. But thank you. Yeah. What is he like? The type.
Oh
What do
God.
you look for? What are the good traits? What's your love language, Carol?
So empathy, empathy, respect, are two things which are very important to me. So if you're empathetic, if you are respectful, I believe that that would allow you or enable you to walk a certain path.
Hmm.
If you are if you are just totally into yourself and narcissistic, then that takes in a different direction. And if you're on that path, then we ain't gonna meet. Or if we happen to be on that path and I see that, then we're definitely gonna, there's gonna come a fork in the road very soon. So empathy, respect, and I live by the maxim, but it's more than a maxim. Do unto others as you would like them to unto you. And I firmly believe if you live by that code, in anything you do, whether it's in relationships, whether it's in your work life, just interacting with other people, if you treat them the way that you would want to be treated, then that in itself prevents a whole shebang of problems. A whole
Can this
shebang of
young
problems.
man be this? Can this empathetic young man be 5'2"
They have to be tall because I'm 5'6", six and a half,
and love
right?
heels, and you
And
like
I love
heels?
that. There you go. So
Okay,
I don't think I should be looking down on that sends a whole heap of different messages.
right.
So yeah, so they have to have a little height because when I put on the 4-inch heels, then that pushes me up to 5'10" immediately. So you see what I mean? There can be some problems if you're 5'2".
Does he have to be a man of faith?
Yes, because then if that's gonna open a whole heap of problems. That's going to just put us in a situation where we are going to be butting heads. Because
What if he's a really good man, but he just doesn't believe?
I think it would create a problem because I have I have my faith. It's very important to me. It keeps me centered. I ain't gonna give that up. And for it to be a wholesome, full-fledged, fully enjoyable relationship, then we have to share and interact in not only in other spaces and in other things, but we should be able to also meet at the place of faith, and he should be able to understand what when I'm at that place, he should be able to understand what it is I'm going through, what I'm talking about, and be able to relate to it. And if you can't relate to the space I'm in faith wise, then we really have not connected, and there's always going to be that gap. And you know what they say, nature abhors a vacuum. So something going to drop into that space, whatever it is, going to drop into that space. And
Carol, I wouldn't be
it is
Roger if I didn't ask you this question. Carol, he's a good, strong, hard-working man. He worships the ground you walk on, but he doesn't believe that a man was in a whale's belly for 3 days. He just doesn't believe it. Why are you going to take him out of the running? You don't work with a man and see if he may have a point.
well, of course, we would have had those conversations, because we would have had those conversations for me to get to the place where I realized that he doesn't believe. And so in those conversations, again, going back to what I said earlier, I would not be taking a big stick and say, you must believe. How can you not believe? Are you crazy? Are you stupid? How can you not? That is not my approach. So we'd have had those conversations, and he would have heard my viewpoint, and I would have led him to understand where I'm coming from and where my beliefs are grounded. And if he doesn't and cannot accept that belief structure, that then unfortunately, respectively, we can be great friends, but that's about it. That's
You
about
know,
it.
Carol, there's men all around the world, probably saying to themselves, boy, if only she would allow me to get in the door, I'd read the Bible with her and learn a thing. But
But,
for
it, but
now,
that's in those conversations, because if I like you well enough to entertain you in that way, and we have those conversations, and everything else, you check every other box is a tick. Every other box that tick, just the one there, and we talk about it. Well, if you want the other box check much and you want a thing to go on, then you'll have an open mind. But again, I would hope that you wouldn't just say yes, you believe just to check the box, but that you would genuinely at least have an appreciation and be willing to open your mind and be willing to understand and to learn. And hopefully you'll get there. But if after all of that interaction and conversation and exploration and talking and all of that, and we don't get there, then that's a big issue for me.
Joe Grind are reading Bible all around the world now. Them just are reading Bible, catch up. All right. So how do you manage your
Oh, well,
mental
let's
health?
see. Let's see. Um, for my mental health, um, I know what I'm supposed to do, but I don't do it. So just the mindfulness and um, taking time and the introspection and just zoning out. I don't do a lot of it. I know I need to. I'm always on the go. I have slowed down in the last 2, 3 years. I have slowed down quite a bit. And I'm working on getting to that place where um, I'm more mindful and I take care of myself more. As I said, I've slowed down because one of the things I had to consciously do was to shed some of my responsibilities, some of the various things I was into, because I needed to, I was running myself ragged and I just couldn't continue like that. So I had to come to that place where I said, okay, I have to shed this, I have to shed that, because I need to take care of myself and take care of myself first. I still am on that road. I'm not quite there yet, but it's a work in progress.
Okay. Um, you mentioned earlier that you like to travel. What's your dream? So, a place that you haven't been to and you'd love to go with your daughters. If money was of no issue, you would be there tomorrow morning.
I've in all my travels, I've not been on the African continent. And so I'd like to do that, to do the safari, to do East Africa, West Africa, Ghana, Nigeria. That's for the history and the cultural connections. Um, I'd like to see the falls. The name slips me now, in Zimbabwe. I want to see that. The, at the African continent. In Europe, I've always had a dream of traveling, going to the south of France, the wine country, the vineyards, that kind of. I came close to that kind of environment and ambiance
Right.
in Switzerland, but I would like to do that as well down there.
So, living in Jamaica with the polarized political environment and you being a patriot, how do you manage to maneuver around that?
Wow, it's a delicate balance that you have to take, because, as you say, it's a small space and everybody knows everybody. And you, even though they're the two main political parties, there are family members in both of them. And you know what they say, blood thicker than water. So you have to navigate that kind of that space very carefully. For me, certainly in my previous job, I had to interact at that level with government ministers and so on. And I have been through various regimes. So when I started out, it was it was one party, and then it transitioned to another party, and then it went back to another party, to the first one. So I've been through all of them,
Right, right.
and within the space of government, one of the ministries, although the name may change, but there's always a ministry of government that has responsibility for intellectual property. So I've had to relate with that particular minister, and that ministry. And you have to just be focused on what it is that you want to
So,
achieve, and try walk through the raindrops and trying to alienate the body, because the next thing is that you can't when one it does the reality of what where we are. One party is in power, you have to just trying to alienate the body, because you don't know what happen when election run. And people in Jamaica, they have a very long memory.
right.
And they want to remember where you did say and where you never did say, and who you did say it with, and where you did say about whoever. So you just have to navigate that space and be professional. That's how I manage in that way.
So I shouldn't read your color coordination anyway. It's just
Not at
colors
all.
in there.
This is just my favorite color. I just love red.
Okay, okay, okay. All right. Do you
And
have? Do you
there's
have?
no red party that is a red party, you know.
Okay,
One
okay.
party here is really, I mean, them kind of, people associate the red with one, but it's really orange. It's really orange and
Okay,
green.
okay. All
But
right,
my
all
red
right.
is my favorite color. So no, not read nothing
Okay.
into it.
So, Carol, if you could go and speak to your high school self, what would you say to a young Carol Newman?
There's a big, wide world outside of this space. And one of the first things I would say, Pickney, not drop the Spanish, learn the Spanish, not drop it. That is one of the biggest mistakes I made in high school.
Hmm.
The day I woke up in my professional life and realized, it hit me, Carol, you live in a place called Latin America and the Caribbean.
Hmm.
And the space in which you live, there are more Spanish speakers than English speakers.
Hmm.
And the powers that be, that's just how them cut up the world. And you are in this space, you're in the Caribbean, but you're really in Latin America and the Caribbean. So I, for example, have encouraged my children, my daughters, learn the foreign language, learn Spanish, learn French. Um, not so that for me was no, no, not we don't even entertain the conversation about dropping any language. So that is one lesson I learned, and which I would have said to my high school self. You're not drop not you're not dropping Spanish. Go through with it. You're in a space which you're going to need it. And if you drop it, you're going to regret it.
Right, right. I feel the same way. I've said it on this forum before. Living in Texas, there's a lot of Spanish spoken here, and I wish I had paid attention. But I only went to Manning's for 3 years, so I can forgive myself. You know what I mean? Are you? Would you say you're an organized person, Carol, or are you like a wannabe hoarder? Considering you have 6 pairs of shoes in your car trunk.
You can be both, they are not mutually exclusive.
Okay.
You can be a hoarder and you can be organized. I think I am very organized, certainly I'm meticulous. And that comes up certainly in work. I'm very meticulous, I'm very organized. I think it's one of my strengths. Um, but I'm a hoarder too. And so the just if you go in my handbag now, all the cash receipts and when they swipe the machine and it's in the bag and you may find say any bag in my handbags you go into you're going to find some from whenever, just as simple as that. So I'm a hoarder. There are shoes that I know I need to give away, and I do that from time to time. Clean the closet out and so on. But even now, we know that yeah, there are still some things that need to come out because you add too much things in here. When I moved house, I moved house about seven or so months ago. We're now in June. Actually, wow, it's more than that. Time flies. 10 months ago. And that for me was a time to shed. And it was the first time that I really consciously
Hmm.
just cut up, just cut, just close the eye and just throw them just okay, the pile there, just clear it out. Because I made a conscious decision and said, look, I'm not carrying. The only thing I'm taking with me are what I really, really need and love.
Right.
So I cut out a lot of things. But yeah, but as I said, being organized and being a hoarder are not mutually exclusive.
Okay. You know, it's nice that you can say that and believe it. I believe it. If you buy a pair of shoes, you throw one out. I believe
That
anything
is
you bring
supposed
in,
to
you bring one out.
happen.
I have two more questions for you. When you look back at life's journeys, is there anything you would do differently?
Um, the the politically correct answer is that you should not regret your life. That's one school of thought that says that your life, whatever you do, your life lessons, and one school of thought will say, well, if there are regrets that you've made and that you would have want to correct. When I look back on my life, there are some things I would do differently. There are some choices I made, which if I had to redo them, I would not have made those choices. And so that is a fact. There are some choices I made which I think I would have done differently if I had to redo them. But having said that, um, and perhaps because I can't change it,
Right,
I
right.
now look for I now look for the lessons that I learned from those experiences. And I take those lessons and use the lessons learned to fashion my way forward. So when I look back, I think about um, what came out of that. What do I leave that space with, and how does it help me? How can I use it? Um, how can I leverage that experience, as bad as it was looking back on it, or even perhaps when you were in it, it was a bad decision. But having moved out of it, how can I leverage that experience to make it better or to do changes going forward? And I suppose it's a way of looking at a glass being half empty or half full. Yeah. So even though those experiences might have been a really truly half empty glass or perhaps quarter glass, I you kind of reorient and say, well, yeah, that was not the best thing you could have done, Carol. That no, Carol, you shouldn't do that, or
Are you hard
but
on yourself?
very hard on myself.
Wow, wow.
I'm
So,
very
what have
hard
you
on.
learned as you've matured? Are you getting more hard on yourself? Because, as you get older, you're supposed to be saying, hey, it is what it is,
I give myself, I give myself a pass sometimes. As I'm getting older, and this is now the mature self talking about how to treat with those experiences that where looking back now, um, yeah, that wasn't the best thing to have done. But as I've matured, I think I have become a little bit more patient with myself. Um, I think more. I think through situations more um, than I did. I'm more contemplative um, now than I was, as I've gotten older. And I take my time more. So I'm not hurrying to get somewhere, kind of.
Right.
Um, I think now, okay, I'm here, or I want to get there. What do I do? How do I do this? Am I going to get in a fast car, or am I going to just take a leisurely walk and not care how many persons flying past me and saying, "Oh, but you want a ride? You can come into this car," And I'm like, "Yeah, but me good, good, me good."
Did your high school have any influence in the way you lived your life, shaped you in any way?
Um, it influenced me in terms of where I am now in giving back, because I learned and I benefited. I remember, for example, I may have been in second form. Yeah, I may have been in second form. And I didn't go to school. There's times when I didn't go to school. I was absent from school. And one day, the form teacher at the time, I think she was my form teacher, and she asked me why I was absent from school because I must have been absent for more than once, in a particular period of time. And then she asked me why I didn't come to school. And I said because I had no lunch money. And she said to me, never stop from school because you have no lunch money.
Hmm.
If you come to school, as long as you're able to, your parents can get you the bus fare to come to school, come to school. And if you don't have any lunch money or bus fare, come to me.
Wow.
Banton was her name. She used to be the home ec in the home ec department. She used to be the home ec teacher. And that has stayed with me all these years. And I remember I tried to find her, um, and as an adult, and I'm reflecting and I'm remembering that. I remember the day when I remembered it, and I was like, my goodness, I wonder where she is now.
Hmm.
And I searched and found her. She was at the Minister of Education
Hmm.
at the time. We've lost touch again. And now that I'm talking about it, I'm going to see if I find her again. But I found her at the Ministry of Education and connected with her and reminded her of that conversation and how
Special
it
lady,
impacted,
very special lady.
yeah, and how it impacted me.
Yeah.
And just talking about it now, I'm tearing up because that to me was important and it helped me. And it's one of those things that fashioned my giving back. And I remember when I came to Kingston, as I said, I came to Kingston in 1983.
Hmm.
So that's the year after graduation. And when I came, I mean, I used to come for holidays and so on to my family, but because I had family here. But I started living in Kingston from the summer of 1983. So I would have been here like in August. And I heard that there was a past students association. Manning's had an association. And I found out about it and I found out where the meeting was being held. And it would have been this September, I'll never forget it, September of 1983. And I went to the meeting. Fresh little little young pitney I come from Westmoreland. And I went to the meeting, and that was my entry into giving back to Mannings. I never left. And so I've been associated in that way with Mannings since 1983 in one way, shape, or form. And that's my way I have found of giving back, whether it's through the past the Students Association over the years
Hmm.
or later on through the board. But giving back to Mannings became something that was important to me because I benefited in that way. I don't know how it shaped my mind. I can't tell us it shaped my mind a particular way or it made me into a particular kind of a person.
Hmm.
But experiences like the one I had with Miss Banton in second form, that helped to shape who I am in terms of paying it forward. So in that way, and I suppose that perhaps is also why I get involved in volunteering in other things for
Hmm.
persons who are less fortunate. Because I came from very, very humble circumstances in
Hmm.
Westmoreland. And so that is perhaps how my life shaped me. Um,
I was gonna
yeah.
ask you. I was gonna ask you, what can Carol do tomorrow that would make, you know, Carol's life 10 years from now a better life? And just thinking about it, it's finding that
Yeah,
lady because
I'm gonna go search for Miss Banton again.
right, right, right.
Another teacher who had an impact on me was Lorna Sampson. She
Uh-huh.
was the human and social biology teacher. I remember
Okay.
she was from Montego Bay, and I found her sometime after. Miss she's still in Salomar now. Miss Broadbell she was a time. She's now Mrs. Knott.
Okay.
Was another person who had an impact on me. But yeah, I'm going to go look for Miss Banton. That's gonna be on my list of things to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. Hey, Carol, I'm really, really happy that you took the time out in your busy schedule to talk and bless this forum. I really thank you very much for speaking with me.
It was my absolute pleasure, Roger. This is really great. A great, great initiative. It really helps to bring past students together and just to learn about, we haven't been in touch for years. I mean, I've never seen there are many of my classmates I've not seen since we graduated. Didn't even
Right.
know where they were and what they were doing, and how they were doing. And so this is really a good initiative. Kudos. Good job.
Well, the brave ones that don't have a horn in their head, they'll come on and I'm going to talk to everybody, okay? Thank you very much. Take care of
Great. Good luck
yourself.
with that. Thank you. All the best.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.